And then, yeah, everyone should be muted. I'll mute myself in a second. But yeah, thank you so much, Eduardo, for talking to us, and looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
Thank you for inviting me, Susie. Well, I'm Eduardo Padilha. I'm an artist based in Borough, where I live. The name of my building is Balin House, and therefore that's the name of the project that I created here in 2006, Balin House Project. Basically, Balin House Project started in 2006, as I said, after 10 years when I graduated in Chelsea College. During this period, I was moving a lot around London, and when I've been offered this space in this social housing, I realized that as a foreigner, an artist, I needed to create a knowledge of my surrounding. I should get to know the neighborhood. And my only tool that I have to do that was my space. And as an artist, I opened the flat that at the time it was 1-bedroom flat. And I started to invite colleagues to do exhibitions here. I put up a bar in the balcony, and free bar. And as I said, I offer the space for the artists to do whatever they want here. And I introduced myself to the neighbors, and that was one way also to speed up the connection with neighbors through these social gatherings. During 3 years, it was very informal. It was very good because the neighbors just dropped in and out and came for a drink, and it was this mix of artists and local people. I must say that Balin House is inside of a complex called the Tabarts. Is the oldest social housing in the UK. After Arnold Circus, that was the pilot one. And the building of the estates, it lasted for 1 century. Thus, it was very stretched. You have a very old buildings and more recent ones. Thus, 2006, I moved in. For 3 years, I did these very informal exhibitions. And soon after, I needed to start to kind of reshape the project according to the needs. And from there, each year I have started to add one program or reshape, renew the whole idea of the project. Very briefly, 2009, I have invited one artist that she extended her project in a local organization, South London Gallery. Thus, with these artists, I create a precedent because the artist brought a very structured program. And it was the first time that the artists show here with a grants. Also, we started working and delivering workshops for the neighbors. And I was introduced to the local tenant and resident association, which became a partner for many projects. Another punctuating another event that happened here that has changed the shape of Balin House projects. It was 2009, where Balin House applied for Arts Council project, and I got the grants, and we started to publish our books. Also, 2009, I started to invite colleagues to co-curate the projects here. 2013, I started a pilot project for 2 years with artist called Harold Offe. We create Sunday lunch where I invite another 7 people to sit around the table, and I cook for them, and we discuss local and current topics. Also, the idea of artists living in a social housing. That was 2013. Also in the same year, I have annexed the laundry room next to the flat, and I invited an architect office called Public Works to refurnish and to adapt the place for living and exhibition space. 2016, I bought a very tiny plot of land in Brixton. It used to be a parking space. And from 2017 to 2020, I have submitted the planning permission and went through many steps and procedures. And last week we got a planning permission. And the idea initially, it was to move the Balin House projects from a flat to a home. That is a idea projected, and it may happen or not. Things has changed, and situations now has become very different from 4 years ago when I did the first submission of plan permission. That's the whole story about Balin House, in short, punctuated by those events, and become a big part of my practice. I have a studio in Camberwell where my practice is very much object oriented, but this project has became more intertwined with my daily life, and also realized that I started to think projects and sharing ideas with other people in the domestic event space and through the events, and realizing the projects and the practical side, it was just in the studio. Thus, I have a kind of two environments to deal with. And that in short, is Balin House. Susie, if you have any other question, that you can.
Can you share some of your pictures on your slideshow?
Okay, I have here a slide. Yeah, it did appear, the slides? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's an graphic image where Balin House is. As I said, is very close to Borough Job Station. And there appears one of the few estates. That's the balcony where there is the extension is Balin House located above the red tile of the neighbor downstairs. That was one part of the exhibition in 2009, and we kind of extended the physical space to the outside. That's the footprint of the flat, and it shows where the laundry room was here. And in each floor of the building, there is one laundry room along to the staircase. Thus, in each floor is one laundry room, and it has been abandoned and closed, locked down for many, many years. And that when the laundry room has been annexed to the flat, and merged and refurnished by Public Works, the architect Storanji Konsari. Here are some images of the first exhibition. There is Harold Offe since the first event. The second exhibition is by Eduardo Navarro. He's the current artist at Gasworks. Thus, if you want to see Gasworks, is Eduardo Navarro there, and he has great works. He took over the flat. I always offered the whole flat to be an exhibition platform. The third artist is a Brazilian artist based in Holland. Show some photographs and videos. And I must say that the people that I invited to work here are immediate friends, colleagues that I have been in touch for a long time, and I have affinity with them, the way to work, because the domestic space is very intimate, and then you need to get along with the artists. That's one of the approaches also of Balin House. That's a very domestic, very one-to-one, sharing with peers, works that are already used to, and I have appreciation and a link to of interest. What I'm showing here, Susie, is the poster of the first exhibition where we kind of structure better the program, because the artist, as I said, extended her residency with Acme and South London Gallery, and she brought a part of the project here. Thus, it was much more structured. We did a walk, night walk, where the artists invite the locals to lead the walk and to tell non-written history about the area, what they knew, and could be, you know, gossips and stories that they knew, things that were not officially written. And that was great because the artists introduced, you know, workshop also as a part of the program. And from there, I focus a lot of only two things that I request to the artists to participate and to do, you know, as a focus of the project, is to take in account the locals and the context of social housing and the history of the area. London Bridge, as you know, has very rich history, and then that's the only two things that I ask for the artists to have as request topics to deal with. Here there's some historical pictures of the Tabard houses at the time, the 1930s, around London Balin House. That the coming picture is in 2013, where I start to use the next laundry room that was locked down as exhibition. It was the year that I invite colleagues to be co-creating the space. At the time, I invited Maiko Tsutsumi, that's a designer, to develop a project where she invited Michael Merritt and I invited Richard Wentworth, and you put both together to work with Balin House. And Richard used to be a local resident in the 70s, if I'm not wrong. And then he brought pictures from his archive from the time, from his collection called Making Do and Getting By. And at the time, Michael Merritt and Richard knew that the laundry room will be annexed to the flat. And Richard, as a designer and a conceptual designer, he perforated the walls of the laundry room to the flat, where whoever walking to see the exhibition, Richard Wentworth, in the laundry room, could view the flat. And doing that, it was a kind of indication that later both spaces will be merged. The next images are in 2013, when Public Works is refurnished the space, and the laundry room became the living room, and where I started doing the Sunday lunch and the general meetings. There is the space that I sit and I share ideas with other artists, and sometimes invite artists also to show their work in a very informal way around another table, over a drink or a light meal, independent of the Sunday lunch. That are the more recent projects, some picture of the Sunday lunch people. And the last image is the plot of land, as you can see, very narrow triangle space in Loughborough Junction. That is the image. I'm back to you.
Thanks so much. And obviously before you came, well, just before everyone came in, you were giving me an actual tour of the space with your computer. Is that possible to do again?
Yeah, sure.
Really interesting to see it, you know, in that way. I think it's really nice.
I want to do my best to be more steady. Now it's a little bit dark, but I want to open the window. That's the balcony to the outside, long lane. Here is my room. Very sorry, that's quite messy because I've been working from home. It used to be the living room before the annexation of the laundry room. I move into the common space, where is open kitchen to the formal laundry room, We have open windows to the stairwell. And those windows work also as a showcase for the exhibitions. The cabinet and the furniture there also is part of the exhibition space. As the shrimp tank also, there is commission for underwater sculptures for there. There is a place where I cook for my guests for the Sunday lunch and meetings. Here is the guest room. Always I have someone living here that helps me to support the project and the expenditures for the project. And here is the toilet. Thus, I must say that Public Works and we collaborate together, and the idea, the concept of the space in terms of furniture and structures, it was to buy as much you could from second-hand furniture and to adapt to the new ones. And for 6 months, I've been buying things from eBay, from as close I could from London. And I create a catalog that's here from the things that I bought. And this catalog is not just the items that I bought, but together with each item that I bought, I send a template letter asking for the owner of the object, telling if they knew any story around the object to send it. Thus, we got quite interesting stories around the objects. That was a way to create a history from the objects coming to here and linking them and having already just to state already story about the objects and to have something to tell. Do you like I show the other books very briefly?
Yeah, please. I had it on my notes to remind you. So yeah.
I have, once I have shown the catalog, I have started very, very humble publications, blurb from the workshops, because we got grants from the local authority for the workshops. It was good for the kids to take something with them. The second publication is The London Room with Richard Wentworth and Michael Merritt, co-curated by Maiko Tsutsumi. I have used for many publications Risograph, which we brought also for the workshops for the kids and family to work with Risograph. That at the time I published separately the works of the workshops, the results. And from the 2013, I have annexed the workshop publication in the back of the book. That's the book that I co-curated with Torange Kozari called My Home is Your Home, Public Works. And it was also part of the collaboration of the refurnishing of the flat. Thus, is very much, the emphasis is very much on the architectural history, architecture of the area, with a lot of chapters and guest writers. 2016, Balin House celebrates 10 years. Thus, I did a compilation chronographically, by chronographic order, of the events here in black and white risograph. And I literally do not publish all material that I have in the archive. The first press release and the image at the time, thus is literally the chronological events of Balin House. They are all Balin House publishing events. The last one is House Taken Over. It's co-created with Harold Offe. The editor is Jess Fernie. We have guest writers and also a poet and experimental writer called Holly Corfield Carr. And again, the workshop is in the back of the book, is everything inside, exhibition, writing, and workshop. And the workshop took place at Data Exchange and Freelance Foundation supported a lot, I must say. They are all Arts Council grants, but with partnership. And as I said, last one, Tate Exchange and Freelance Foundation has been a major and amazing partner. Yeah, those are the publications. And the last one you can still find in Whitechapel Gallery and for sure at Camden Art Center. And sometimes I sell them at, sometimes, no, very often, at Serpentine Gallery also. That's the way that I disseminate the project of Balin House once the project has finished. It gives a kind of continuity and dialogue. And I believe that books are still amazing and they do very much serve for that. Yeah, that's about the publication.
Can you talk a little bit about the on the publication on the black and gold one? It's obviously the window design. Was that public art, public works? Yeah, that one. So it's around the flat on the windows as well. The same design.
Yeah, this design is the same pattern of the windows patterns. That's a pattern that I found in a tile in a countryside in Brazil, and has a history of image that came from Europe to Brazil, and I would like to bring back because it was related to my family and immigration. Thus, I took symbolically a image which circulated 150 years ago in the same way that I did in reverse way. Thus, Italians that immigrated to my area brought this kind of image and material as a tile, and I brought back to Europe as a part of my home. Thus, is the only very personal image that I have related to myself in the flat. But that's 10 years book publication. I should say the last publications that I did is the designer is Sarah Boris, and we've been collaborating, and it has been, great to also to build up partnership, with colleagues and designers. That's yeah.
Brilliant. And how do you find all the people that you're working with? Are you doing open calls or kind of just doing it based on people that you meet? How do you meet all these people?
No, as I said, because it's very informal, it's still very informal program. The only formality is that I get the Grants Arts Council and I need to follow some procedures. And there is a program. But the invitation to the artists are artists that I know for years, that they have established a kind of friendship and knowledge of who the person is, because I said, it's very much, one-to-one develop the project. I stay in the back supporting the artists through the whole project. And also I started last year to giving much more, let's say, emphasis to local artists, because I need the artist to be around for the Sunday lunch or walk and talks. And I ask the artist to program a workshop for the locals. That's the same topic that's developed for the commission in the exhibition, The Flat. The artists somehow extend the topic to a workshop for the community. That's the relation with artists. There are artists that I've been observing and invited. And as I said, they need to be available for not many days, but for a long time, because the project, developing very spread out stretch program.
And how do you find the response is from the local community? Have you managed to engage a lot of people through the workshops and events?
Yeah, it varies a lot according to the program that I announce. Walk and talks are very popular because people just turn up and they are not obliged to socialize with others. Inside of the flat, it's more socializing. There's a more mix of artists and locals. it has been changing along to the time, and they has been remain a core group that follow up Balin House events, either the exhibition here or the workshops. If they have kids, they tend to go to the workshops. The people that are more the adults and singles come to the events because it's a kind of social gathering and drinking and seeing art. Thus, it became very popular. It was the way that, as I said in the beginning of the interview, it was the way that I introduced myself to the locals. And in one go, people knew who I was, who I am, and also what I was doing, and open up straight away conversation with them, a dialogue. You must take in consideration that social housing people move out for one reason or the reason. The elderly go down to the first floor or go the other kind of social housing that's appropriate for elderlies. And yeah, it changed a lot of people, but my connections to the whole estate and the complex, that's, I have a lot of people outside of the building that come for the events. And because Balin House will be 15 years old next February, you must also keep in mind that the kids that initially came for the workshop, they are not anymore kids. And then you need all the time kind of outreach new people. And that naturally, renew the audience.
Amazing. Can you talk about any other of the kind of challenges that there might be in a project like this? Kind of obviously about engaging new audiences, but other challenges.
Well, initially, kind of an anecdotal challenge. It was when I approached the council saying that I want to do events here, because I didn't want to get any surprise doing a local event in my flat and get an officer or police knocking the door, asking what was going on. Thus, I officially asked the council and asked them to reply in a letter for me. And I said, I would like to start a very informal project. Instead of a party, I said to them, like, I could do a party, as a private space. I said, I would like to do art event. And they allowed me only 30 people maximum. That was kind of funny. They wrote down, and we had much more than that, the initial exhibitions. I must say also the events took place on Sundays, and it was like the whole afternoon that gave time for people walking in and out. Thus you have very good audience. Challenge, there are many, another challenge is the amount of money that in the last years I received is a amount that Arts Council give that's very manageable as individual. It's never more than 15,000, because that's the benchmark where it's easy to report back and to manage, and it's flexible for any change of the initial program. But that at the same time give me a lot of work to go out there to look for in-kind support and financial support, because as a part of the program, as I mentioned before, there's a book and there's a lot of people to pay, and you share equally the same amount of fees between artists and writer, editor, and graphic designer. That's everybody gets the same amount. And yeah, you always want to improve, the quality of the publishing, and that's quite a challenge to get. That's usually, to tell in terms of numbers, I managed to get between 10 and 15,000 extra in kind or financial support in order to develop one-year program. Another thing that is not financial, but it's a big challenge that we are me, but I collaborate with other people, Balin House. we apply for Arts Council. That is a application that you usually offer to start 2-3 months after you apply. Soon after you get the reply, and along to the program we always try to do a partnership with local organizations. Some are small, some are very big. For instance, I have the last workshop, it was in Tate Modern, and I have launched the book in Matt's Gallery. They're very different size organizations. Matt's Gallery, you can walk in and you can talk with the director and the founder, and it's one-to-one relation that you can manage. But what I'm trying to say is that big organization was Tate or other organizations, if you want to do a workshop in those places and you give a short notice, it's very difficult to get a place. And in order to deliver an interesting workshop, you need to bring the community to places that usually they don't go by themselves. That's the major challenge, the confrontation between small organizations, Balin House, trying to link to organizations that they do programs 1 or 2 years in advance. Yeah, financial programming, and there's always, other circumstances from the day by day. Weather also, because the flat is very small, I always need to do on Sundays, and I need to count with good weather because we expand the space, balcony, front and back, and staircase, and all those things, need to be in the package. Yeah, I don't know if I skip other important challenges, but that's one of them.
And you spoke about it a little bit, but what about your inspiration for setting up the project in the first place? Because I imagine, as far as I know from my research, like projects in domestic spaces are more common nowadays, but I guess 15 years ago it would have been quite an unusual, but even more of an unusual thing to set up. So did you see other existing projects, or what was your motivation and your inspiration for
in terms of domestic spaces? There always been events in domestic spaces, but with the difference that like 10 years ago, it was popular, but it was like one-off or 2-3 events, and then the people move on to the other things. There's few like Balin House that has been in a domestic space, very small platform, and always linked to the community. And yeah, there's very few that has lasted. Because somehow the city and life demands people to move on for different formats. Somehow I managed to go on, but don't forget that historically, there is in France the saloons that artists did saloons at home,
yeah.
And also in the Soviet Union era, the artists did a lot of events at home because their public art, it was under government commissions, and they need to serve the political needs of the government. And their own practice, they show just in domestic space among themselves. There is some very famous groups, and one of them called APT, that is abbreviation of apartment, but I understood that in Russian means art. And that was a very famous one with famous people. They showed amazing work just for themselves, that it has this layer of peer-to-peer. And
yeah, we met at a salon, didn't we, at Friedland's house in the salon.
That's true. We met in a salon at Freelance Foundation when it was in Mayfair.
Yeah.
And it was very nice because approached to me in my first you asked me if I was artist, and the way that I introduced myself to you is exactly the beneficial way to work to create Balin House. Explaining why. As soon as I have introduced myself to you, I said also I have a small platform. That's the way that somehow I can remove myself to not talk just about myself, but I talk about a project that's outside of myself, and I can open up the conversation, because one is just one-to-one as artist, and it can create, you know, quite kind of awkward, you know, dynamics. You know, you talk about you, I talk about me, you know, and goes like this ping pong that, you know, that's kind of classic. Thus, Balin House has been a tool to operate as an agency for me to introduce myself to the community, and also to talk to other colleagues without directly, you know, to talk about my practice. And I can talk about the project and people that has been the project. As somehow I open up, and has benefit a lot for my kind of personality, you know, that I can talk about different things outside of myself. And because I'm not very good talk about my work, that they give me, you know, this kind of space to deal with the introduction of myself, and also to talk about art in much more broad sense, you know. And I can, yeah, it's part of my dynamics also. And yeah, and that has happened when we met. Very
Yeah.
good point.
Do you keep connections with artists in South America as well? Are you still connected there? Or I guess you've been in London a long time now. But...
Well, I've been in London the last 24 years, if I'm not wrong. My background is that in terms of studying, I did my MA here, my BA in Holland. That's why I have invited some artists from Holland initially, because that was my network. And some of them, they have the same kind of platform back in Holland. And in South America, fun enough, my connection, it came very late because I never studied art there. Thus, I start to meet Brazilians that come to study or to work here in London. And that was my connection to Brazil. The South Americans that show here, 2 out of 3, if I'm not wrong, are European based. And as I said, Eduardo Navarro is someone that's always been Buenos Aires based, is the one that's showing guestworks right now. He was doing a residency in Portsmouth. And he was the second artist here. And my strategy in the beginning of the existence of Balin House, I invited artists that were doing already existing projects, and invite them to extend their projects with a Balin House event. Thus, I think I have surely 3 South American artists, and others I invited to do a kind of talk here and Sunday lunch. That has been extension to South American connection. Yeah.
Cool, thanks. I think I've just got 2 more questions, if that's okay.
Yes.
I just wanted to know how, presumably COVID's affected it quite a lot. Are you able to do anything kind of planning forwards at the moment, or are you on hold completely? What's happening?
No, for Balin House, you know, it has been very unfortunate because I was ready to submit. I was in conversation already with Arts Council. I had a show that's supposed to be a show where I would celebrate many things. 15 years of Balin House, and probably one of the last shows, because I was still intending to move out from here. Thus, I put myself as the artist to reflect the years that I was working here. Thus, that's still on hold. I hope I can pick up soon for next year. It's not possible in my set of mind to do events during COVID here, because it's a very small space. All my practice around Balin House has been inviting people to come, to get together, and COVID doesn't permit much. Thus, Balin House project has been on hold. The only thing that happened in between, it was the planning permission has got to end, and hopefully, you know, a positive end. And I could start to think also to use the plot of land as an open space for projects. I've been thinking about that, how to do very informal projects in open air. It has helped a little bit to reflect about which direction also a program like mine could develop in the coming years, and how to survive in this new kind of economical crisis. In one hand, it becomes much more difficult to be artist in London, but in another hand, it will give the COVID mood, let's say, will give emphasis for people to think about smaller scale events and local, if that makes sense. And also Balin House projects, I think somehow is a proof that with small budget, it can do a lot, because it involves a lot of people. The responses in various levels are great. And I've been talking from the beginning now that sounds Balin House has just benefit me. But I hope it has along to the history benefits everybody, locals, the artists that come here, the writers. I hope I didn't give too much, misleading information. That seems to be that it has benefited just me. I have used it as a tool to introduce myself in different levels, but I got feedback that has somehow been beneficial to everybody that has been involved.
Yeah,
That's Balin House on hold.
Do you have, my last question is just about future plans, like regardless of COVID. Obviously you've got the planning permission and you've talked a little bit about kind of plans for that, but what are your kind of blue sky ambitions if we take COVID out of the equation?
Well, I should raise loads of money, much more, if I would like to build my own home. I just learned a lot about that, and that was a way. Also, the ambition was not literally, just to build my own home with architect, of course, and have a different space for Balin House, but it was a risky way to learn more about the system, how this society operates. That was another benefit of Balin House in different levels, that gave me a lot of scope, how rules work and how the politics work in this country. Thus, the planning permission lasts 3 years. That gives me a lot of time to think about if it goes ahead. But I've been thinking a lot, which other formats Balin House can take. And for sure, independent of moving out of Balin House, let's say next year or next 2 years, the format will change. It got to one way that it become quite costly financially and emotionally. And the structure with this £15,000 that I get from Arts Council to do the things that I've been doing. Thus, I need to have another look up to the format. And I've been discussing with friends and colleagues. Thus, there is nothing very clear yet, but there is out there the need to once more to renew the project in different formats. Thus, I think I didn't answer much to your question, but that's the current mood, just reflecting what can be soon. Thus, I've been discussing that.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. It's been really fascinating hearing you speak tonight, and thank you so much for giving your time. And we always do it at the end, we just unmute ourselves and give you a round of applause. So thanks so much.
Thank you for inviting me.